We know why y'all here to hear Ken Rashad cuss somebody out again for the 5th week in a row.
Wow.
Yes,
Is
man.
that how we?
You've been on a run lately, man.
I'm not cursing anybody out.
You purport yourself being a journalist. You and Chris Stevens do this every week. We're journalists. We do things the right way. Then 5 minutes later, you so and so's losers and simple-minded people.
That is not
That's
true.
what y'all do, man.
That is not true. And how dare
I
you?
can play the tape. These shows are
Okay.
recorded and available on YouTube worldwide. You know I'm right, though.
No. But no, we're not cursing anybody out. Nobody's being cursed out.
It's short of that, though. I would say. It's
well,
really short of that.
okay, but just so you guys know, nobody's doing it with the intent on just we're not just doing it. We're
This righteous
impassioned.
indignation, man, hurting.
We're impassioned about the things that we discuss.
This righteous indignation hurting the brand, man. That's all I gotta say.
Exactly. Chris, we aren't even 2 minutes into the show, and he's already just starting this. Just tell me anyway, man. Anyway.
Yeah, Miss T Mac agrees with me.
He's very.
Yep. He's a toddler, pretty much. I deal with a toddler every day. Ken's the other toddler I deal with weekly. So, but he did admit to me yesterday. He called me on the phone, and told me, "Kendrick, you're right." Now, like Cameron shot admit he's right.
My God!
I should have recorded that for everybody here.
Okay, yes, I did. I called you yesterday, and yes, I told you were right about something that I was wrong about. That business related. Okay, and we will not go into that into the show. But yes, Kendrick, you were right. Damn.
Let's try to get Ken to admit he was wrong on the show today. That's going to be our goal. Audience, chime in. Let's help Ken Rashad be wrong about something today. We're not going to talk about Ken Rashad being wrong, all right? We're going to talk about SWAC stuff. There's a lot of SWAC stuff going on, despite the fact it's kind of like a slow period where there's only thing going on is like spring sports now. But it still must be talked about. We're getting to football. We're going to get in a little bit of baseball and some of the transfer portal too. And our first topic will be football.
Wait. Before we
do that, yeah.
Today's episode of the SWAC Page podcast is being brought to you by the HBCU Sports Shop, where tradition meets style. From tees to hoodies and more, we've got everything you need to rep Black college culture with pride. And right now, you can save 15% off of your entire purchase with the promo code HBCU Sports 15. That's HBCU Sports 15, all one word. So hit up shop.hbcusports.com and support the movement. Your school, your legacy, your gear.
I don't know about y'all, but I want to go buy something from the website right now after hearing that.
There's a promo code.
Type it in your computers on the website.
Oh man!
And save some money on some shirts. We got some shirts, caps, hoodies. We're coming with coffee mugs a little bit later on.
Yes, there has been a request for mugs, man. Look, there's been a request for mugs. We're going to put some mugs on the shop. Okay, so yes, that was a drop. Yes, it is a commercial. It was a live read.
As they say in the business, a live read. Yes, that was right. So our first topic today will be talking about power rankings. So we on our website decided to rank all of the SWAC teams.
Okay.
Despite the fact football season is 100 days away. But we know you people like to talk football. And so, hey, why not do that?
Okay. Let me first see, already I take issue with this segment because that graphic was highly unnecessary.
It's a fabulous action shot.
That was if I didn't know any better, that's a subliminal message. And I don't think I appreciate that.
The key to a great sports photo is to get like action and the ball in it. If you get the ball and action at the same time, it's a wonderful photo. It shows the violence of football at its essence. That's what it shows.
Look, we might need to hire a new producer.
What are you talking about, hire a new producer?
I don't appreciate that graphic.
Hey, man, I'm only giving the people good visuals here.
All right.
But
All right,
so, so we decided to rank all the SWAC football teams despite it being May and there's no real practice going on right now. But there is great interest in SWAC football, and here are our top 12 SWAC teams in order. We got Kansas State number 1, Southern number 2, FAMU number 3, Alabama State is 4, Prairie View is 5, Alabama A&M is 6, Alcorn State is 7th, Texas Southern, surprising as they were last year, is number 8. Grambling State is number 9. We'll get into that a little bit later. Bethune-Cookman, they show a little bit of improvement. They got the 10. Pine Bluff, 11. And our friends from the Delta, Mississippi Valley State, bring up the rear at 12. Kim Rashad, you see this list, and I'm gonna get into like why the teams are ranked the way they're ranked. But what do you make of the rankings so far as you see them?
Well, I personally think it's bogus.
It's bogus.
But I will say this. If we're going to go based upon what we saw last year, it is justified. How's that?
Yeah, it's justified. Okay. It's not based on last year, also based on like future prospects too.
Well, but Kendrick, so that's where this really gets. I mean, with the way these off-season acquisitions take place, players coming and going, look, and I get it. They want to get paid. Some want to get paid. I just don't know if. Okay, put it like this. I'll give you Jackson State, but can we? I mean, look. I mean, I can understand Southern. I can understand FAMU to a certain degree. But is it safe to conclude that 4 through 12 is literally a toss-up?
I don't know about 12. I think we know who the bottom feeders are in the conference.
Okay, 4 to 10. 4 to 10.
4 to 10. I think that's fair to say. That's fair to say.
That literally can go either way. And you can literally, depending on how things go, and I'm only saying that is because, it used to be where a team finishes the season, and depending on how they receive, depending on how they finish the season, you look at who's leaving and who's coming back. This is obviously pre-transfer portal and NIL. But now, I don't know. So, okay, so let me ask you this, Kendrick, because there's also the possibility, is it this year or next year where they're talking about the 12-game schedule?
It'll be in 2026.
26, okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So let's look at this from 1 to 12. What are we looking at Jackson State in terms of record, wins and losses?
Well, they went.
Take a look at their schedule. We got to take a look. We can take a look at the schedule.
Well, they went unbeaten in the SWAC last season, and they gotten better. They did have some losses in the transfer portal. They lost some guys who either transferred or went to the NFL, but their defense is still going to be really good. That they bring back their quarterback. They lost Irv Mulligan, their running back.
Right. Thank God. And I say that respectfully.
Yeah, I'm definitely so. He was a menace in the SWAC. The SWAC Offensive Player of the Year.
Right.
But their defense is still going to be good. They're going to have a great wide receiver core. They just got Shamar Savage, who we'll talk about a little bit later in the show, from Prairie View, who could be their number 1, number 2 wide receiver. As far as their record go, they might not win 12 games again.
Okay.
I got them between like 9 and 10. 9 on the very low side.
Will they go undefeated in SWAC?
I don't see that changing. I think they go undefeated in the SWAC. Not being a homer here, but just looking at everybody else in the SWAC too, and based on Jackson State's current team they bring back now. I mean, I could see them maybe losing 1 game in the SWAC. I mean, you never know. Like,
I get it. That's not an easy feat. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's not easy. Yeah,
it's not easy at all. But okay. Who else?
The team I thought might have been ranked a little bit too high. Maybe Alcorn State, because as you know, last year they were picked to win the SWAC West. and they didn't come close to winning the SWAC West. They actually underachieved. I think they could be in that pool where you mentioned, Ken. It could be anywhere from 4 to 10. They could fall within that range.
Okay.
They just have to have a more stable offense and less mistakes on offense too, because Cedric Thomas referenced a lot last season about how many mistakes they made in the red zone, how many turnovers they had, how many missed opportunities they had all season long. They could never really put it together. They blew some games down the stretch because of it too. So if Alcorn State is the Alcorn State from last year, they could fall anywhere between 8 and 11 if that continues.
Okay, so I got to ask now, what's the justification for Prairie View?
I'm a really big believer in what Tremaine Jackson is doing down there.
Okay, so nothing else other than the fact you believe in Tremaine.
I mean, they recruited well too, but at the same time, like, you bring in a coach with his pedigree, and he's already galvanized that fan base. He's already galvanized that football program. And not to mention, Prairie View, they played for the SWAC West Championship 2 of the last 3 years. So they're already established a really good football team to begin with. And so you're bringing a guy like Tremaine Jackson, who comes from a winning pedigree at Valdosta State, playing for another championship last year at the D2 level. You bring that along with him, Prairie View is going to be really competitive. And they really could challenge Southern to win the SWAC West. It could come down to the game they play this fall, determine who wins the SWAC West, in my opinion.
Okay, so Alabama A&M because of Sam Shea?
Yes, because of Sam Shea, and they got a whole lot of transfers that they brought in, led by Mekhi Hakins, who left UAPB to go there. Wow. They have a quarterback, and what held them back last year? They didn't have a quarterback. They really haven't had a quarterback since your boy I'm drawing a blank on his name.
You talking about left? Oh, you talking about Glass?
Yeah, Aquil Glass left.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they haven't really had a quarterback since he left. So they have that now. Higgins was the second leading passer in the SWAC last year, and so he's going to provide some veteran leadership and some stability to their offense. And like, you got a guy like Sam Shady, who's won an SIAC at Miles College, been to the playoffs at the Division II level. I think they're another team too who could. They won't win the SWAC East, but they will definitely challenge for at least the first 3 spots in the SWAC East, I'd say.
So, I mean, Kendrick, you've been fact-checked.
I've been fact-checked. No, PV didn't. It was Southern. Okay, you're right. Yeah, but PV has been in the race.
But they have been in the They have been in the race
for the last 3 years. Yeah, and they did play for the SWAC West title in 2023 and got the championship game, losing to FAMU that year.
Right.
So they have been really competitive.
Yeah. Okay. You got Texas Southern over Grambling now.
I know, and it's surprising because
you beat Grambling last year, of course.
Yes, they did. They did. That counts a lot in these rankings. And so the reason why they're there is because they surprised me a lot. Maybe not you and Chris and Jerry, who all had CSU not winning a game last year because of the way they did their football coaching search.
It was justified.
And it turned out to be that way.
Who was that? Was that you saying that we need to know? We owe.
Yes, need to apologize to them.
Nobody apologized.
Need to apologize.
No.
Last season, they compiled their most wins in the SWAC since 2022. That's how good they were under Chris Dishman's first year.
Against bad teams.
Well, Grambling was a bad team then.
That's exactly right.
So, I mean, but even before then, though, they were not beating the bad teams.
Well, okay.
So yeah, like, justified in being number 8. I don't think it's too high. I don't think it's too low. Oh, Chris chimes in. We shouldn't apologize until they win the SWAC West. That's not going to happen this season, but like, they get credit for what they did last year, though, I would say.
Okay. We'll see. Grambling at 9.
Yeah, Grambling at 9. Right? Now, Grambling at 9, they were supposed to be this brand new disciplined football team with Mickey Joseph, their head coach, coming from the Power 5 schools. And what happened? In the middle of the season, he starts talking about them leading the SWAC in penalties again. How can we solve the penalty issue? What can we do about penalties every week on the SWAC call? And then they couldn't protect their quarterback. Offensive line was in shambles. that cost them games. Shot the confidence of Miles Crawley, who played injured for most of the second half of the season. And right now, I don't know if they're gonna be better, even though they got T-Set as their quarterback from the transfer portal from Southern.
Right.
I think Gramblin's probably gonna be the 9th best team in the SWAC this year.
I'm gonna tell you now, though, Kendrick, it could be argued, and I'm not arguing this, but I'm just keeping it real. It could be argued that you have Grambling too high because they lost Bethune-Cookman last year.
I got FAMU too high.
I said Grambling.
Oh, Grambling too high. Oh, okay.
They lost Bethune last year too. If we're looking at, if we're based, so again, I don't know what the complete formula was, but if we're basing this off of last year, based upon what we've seen up to this point with respect to coaching changes, player transfers, and so forth, you know, every play this, and I say this respectfully, it remains to be seen if we, I just don't know, man. I am cautiously, and I do mean cautiously, optimistic. Things are so low right now. The only thing you can hope, the only thing you can say, it can get worse, but not much worse. But it's so low right now, you can just hope that it gets better.
How the mighty have fallen.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
But like, what's the disconnect there though? Why is morale so low at Grambling right now? It's not supposed to be that way.
I don't know if I really, you know, it's not like me. It's not in me, to be honest.
It's not?
It's not in me to just keep it real and be honest with you. And I think it would probably be best that I just sugarcoat it. But if we're going to just really be real, the issue with Grambling football is, in my opinion, it's resource related and lack thereof.
But it's kind of been that way.
Exactly.
When Hugh Jackson was there, he said, if y'all raise $5 million, it will solve a lot of y'all problems.
So let me just give you, see, now you brought Hugh Jackson. Let me tell you guys something. And I think I've said this before about Grambling and with respect to Hugh Jackson. Hugh Jackson was the offensive coordinator at Tennessee State before he took the job at Grambling, right?
Right.
This is just my opinion, but well, okay, this part is factual. When Hugh Jackson accepted the head coaching job at Grambling, he had never ever to step foot on that campus. He had never set foot on that campus. I'm of the belief that Hugh Jackson saw the opportunity of being a head coach at an HBCU football program, and he's saying to himself, this is where my opinion comes in. I haven't talked to him about this. He's already at Tennessee State. Tennessee State, I think it's safe to say, may be the only, if not one of the only HBCUs. I can't think of any other, but I think Tennessee State is the only HBCU that I can think of that has an indoor practice facility. I've been to that campus. I've seen it. And I am of the belief that Hugh Jackson said, you know what? I've got an opportunity to be the head coach at Grambling. It is Grambling. I've never been there, but it is Grambling. It's the place that Eddie Robinson built. And it's the place where they sent all of those players to the NFL. It can't be any worse than Tennessee State. Surely they've got some decent facilities. They love Grambling football down there. It is the icon of Black college football. I've got to take that job. This is just my opinion now. But I know he had never set foot on that campus. And now I'm now take that off, and I'm going into reporting mode. I spoke to I can't think of her name, Kimberly. I think her name is Kimberly Demert, whoever who was affiliated with him, was responsible for his executive director. She told me that when he got to the campus and he got the keys to the locker room, he opened up the door to the locker room. And when they opened up the locker room, they said, "Oh my God." That's how bad it was. He had taken a job that sight unseen. He had no idea what he was walking into. And that's when he realized, okay, I've got work to do. And if you look at his contract and you see the incentives that were put into his contract about how he would be able to receive a certain percentage of the revenue if he were to secure, if he was to secure deals, he'd get a certain percentage of those. Don't whisper. I'm not whispering. I'm reporting now. He would get a certain percentage, like 25% of whatever deal that he brought into the school that would produce revenue for the school. That's the state of how things work. And it remains we'll see if things get any better. I just put it like that. But there is a resource problem on Grambling's campus right now with respect to football in particular. We've already talked about the reasons why Dante Jackson left Grambling to go to Alabama A&M, and he talked about how proactive they had been, or how they had already had the foundation in place to be committed to NIL to secure players, where he talked about how he didn't have that available to keep players. Again, that's a resource issue. So the problem isn't Dante Jackson overperformed, all things considered. And, I can't blame him for leaving. He got out when the timing was right. Because you've heard me say this before, if you're going to hold a coach accountable for wins and losses, regardless of the sport, if a school is going to hold a coach accountable for wins and losses, at the very least, that coach has to have the very minimum a program requires in order to be successful. You give a coach everything he needs, resources, everything else. I just need a minimum. It doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't have to be state of the art. I just need the minimum to function as a Division I institution. You give me the minimum, then you can fully hold him accountable, or her, depending on the sport. But if you got antiquated facilities, or something needs to be fixed, or something needs to be upgraded, or something isn't working properly, and you don't have the money to fix it, and that's something that is considered something that I have to have in order for this program to work, well, to be quite honest with you, you really can't hold that coach accountable for the results of the outcome, even though we do. But I'm just simply saying, man, it takes a village.
I mean, Hugh Jackson got run out there after 2 years.
That's my point. How long is
Mickey
Joseph's contract? 2 years.
It's 2 years? It's 2 years all he got?
This is the contract year.
But isn't standard like 4 years?
Standard typically would be 3 years, right? It used to be a time when they would say, you need to give a coach at least 3 years.
No, at least 4 years for a whole cycle to get through.
Well, I'm just saying. Some would say give them 3 years just to see improvement. That ain't the case anymore. And the thing is, I'm not really, given where we are right now, I'm not necessarily against a 2-year contract.
But if you talk about like the lack of resources, how does like holding back the football program, you got to give a coach more than 2 years.
That's a great point. Assuming that the coach has a fair playing field, or has a playing field that's a fair playing field for him to operate freely or accordingly, that's a great point. I have no answer for that. I have no comeback for that. So anyway, 10, 11, and 12, Bethune, UAPB, and Mississippi Valley. That's a race to the bottom right there.
I don't think Mississippi Valley gonna move from 12. I just don't think so.
You already know. You already know.
Yeah, talk about a resource issue. That program has historically
suffered
from that.
There you go. I'm telling you.
But that doesn't mean I'm going to say what you want me to say about them, though. What? I'm not advocating anybody go down the division because of it.
But can we really hold a head coach, any head coach, regardless of who's there now or any coach in the past? Can we really hold them responsible for wins and losses at Valley? Is it fair to make them accountable for wins and losses? Because right now,
they're hired to win, though.
At Valley, good coaches are being look. If you get 2 or 3 wins at Valley, that's considered a good year, and we give that coach credit for being a good coach. Not that the other previous coaches were bad coaches, but I'm just simply saying you get a 3-win season out of Valley. And in the case of Valley last year, last year they beat FAMU? Yeah, that's a great year. That's a great year.
Well, Kendrick Wade not there no more, so that win didn't really do much for him.
That's my point. Can you really hold him responsible for that? You give him credit for the win, and I'm here to tell you, Kendrick Wade overachieved, given what he had to work with.
Well, he only won 2 games in 2 years, so I don't know how that's good for achieving.
Kendrick, you're saying only, and I'm telling you that's a surplus. That's a benefit considering what he has to work with.
Yeah, but other coaches who've been there won more than 2 games, though.
There aren't.
Carl Morgan went multiple years winning and 5 or 6 games.
Carl Morgan is probably one of the greatest coaches in Mississippi Valley history.
Yeah, Vincent Dancy, before he left to go to Colorado, he was improving that program too.
But that's what I'm trying to tell you, Kendrick. Dancy wasn't fired. Dancy got out of there.
And I thought that set them back that he left. I mean, God bless him for taking the position.
Right,
I would have taken it too,
but are we really to believe that? Okay, let's just say this. Let's say Dancy doesn't even go to Colorado. Do you honestly believe that he stays for 2 years?
I think they're better. I think they're better.
You think Dancy would have stayed?
If he had stayed, I think they would have been better than they are now.
Okay.
Because they were literally competitive in every single game they played, despite the fact they were outmanned, out-resourced. They played hard for him. They won some games they weren't supposed to win. And you're right, Tiger Nation. You got offer you couldn't refuse.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, people would have took it. I don't blame them either. But I think they kind of set their program back. I'm not blaming him at all for it, but I think
who set their program back?
Him not being there, because he had them on the right track.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, was Kendrick Wade a slouch? Kendrick Wade wasn't a slouch. Was it justified for them? Unless there's something we don't know about.
I mean, I don't know why he's not there anymore.
But that's my point. Can we justify Kendrick Wade not being there?
You can justify anybody being fired.
That's what I'm saying. Especially,
but like to give like a coach at a school like that only 2 years, knowing the history of that school, that's unfair.
Well, like I said,
it's more unfair there than it is at Grambling, in my opinion.
Unfair for a coach, you mean?
Yeah, to be fired after 2 years like he was. Yeah,
exactly. But like I said, man, this is all about expectations. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what the expectations are at Valley, but we know what the expectations are at Grambling, even though they may be the tad bit inflated. But there is no mistake. We'll accept Grambling being a basketball school until it's no longer a basketball school. But damn it, historically speaking, Grambling is a football school.
Hey, they got a really good basketball coach now. So it's on the men's side.
Okay, yeah. Like I said, it's a basketball school. Grambling basketball is outshining Grambling football right now.
Yeah, but I think Valley, man, like I'm not blaming Vincent Dancy for leaving because anybody would have left. But I only say the program was set back when he left because like he was developing into a really good football coach. And you could see in the way in which Valley played. And like I think like they were on the cusp of taking the next step under him. And I think with him not being there, kind of like put that on hold for a minute. And so like I'm glad he's at where he's at right now at Mississippi State, doing what he's doing now. But man, like if they got a kept a coach like that around, they would not be 12th on this list. In my opinion.
Okay. I hear you. Like I said, I'm not here to diminish the coaching capabilities of those coaches who left. I'm just simply saying they were not on an even playing field.
Oh yeah, I mean
that's
got an uphill battle.
That's what this is about.
Yeah. They got nobody's. Everybody at the bottom of this list is always going to be on an uneven playing field.
As far as I'm concerned, unless a coach does something that's just unscrupulous, breaks the law, does something that's just uncharacteristic or that goes against the so-called mission of the school, Valley should never be in a position of firing a coach based on wins and losses. Never. Until you do something about facilities and budget. Point blank. Anyway.
So, Ken, is there anybody on this list that you think could possibly like surprise folks and move up?
I don't know if it would be surprised, but you alluded to it earlier. It wouldn't surprise me if Prairie View becomes a player. And look, I'm falling into the media hype just based upon the statements that were made. Okay, Valley's being okay. Put that back up, because Chris Stevens, this is where Valley is victimized by being the state's youngest HBCU, and of course, the Mississippi state government. It's a recipe for disaster. I disagree. Chris. So I'm gonna just simply say this. Valley's a state-supported institution, all right? I have made this before. I made this point before as it relates to HBCUs. HBCUs were not created for the purpose of having powerhouse football programs. It just so happens that they created powerhouse football programs, historically speaking, along the way. Valley becoming a Division II institution that's not an insult. That has absolutely nothing to do with the state, or should I say, it would be justified because they are the state's youngest HBCU, or they've been inadequately funded. Nobody is questioning that. And to that argument, I would say it's because they are inadequately funded that they are justified to go down to Division II so that they can be more competitive. They can still be a state institution. They're still an HBCU, but given where they are financially, given the challenges that they're facing with the state, there's no mandate that says that they have to continue to be a Division I institution, especially when we've seen public and private institutions go down from Division I down to Division III in some cases, i.e. University of New Orleans and I think St. Francis.
Yeah, I get that, Ken, but the state of Mississippi,
is a public institution.
Yeah, but the state of Mississippi, as other states that have Black colleges in them, they don't treat our schools very fairly.
I'm not saying, look, I'm sure the argument could be made that I'm sure to some degree, Jackson State and Alcorn State can probably say the same thing about the funding that they get from the state.
Yes.
Just a little bit more of it. But I'm saying there is no mandate that says that Valley has to compete at the Division I level. That is a Valley decision. That is not the state's decision.
I know, but the state not allocating resources to the school kind of like puts them behind the 8 ball in terms of like being able to field competitive teams, have the resources they need for facilities and such things. That kind of matters too.
Football ain't the priority. Football ain't the priority. So we're just gonna have to agree to disagree on this one. But if look, Valley can, given the challenges that it has right now and the money issues with the state, there's nobody that's making them stay around. There's nobody making them stick around for Division I. They can go down to Division II and they'll be just fine. So let's move on.
I don't know about be just fine. They'll probably be more competitive.
Well, there you go. Exactly.
But just fine structurally and resource wise, we don't know that.
Okay. All right.
But anywho, I got Jackson State winning it again, by the way.
All right.
So on to our next topic. Ken Rashad did some research this week about Black college baseball.
I did.
And SWAC baseball specifically. He looked at the winningest coaches in SWAC baseball history. You got here pictured Rat McGowan from Alcorn State, Roger Cador from Southern, and Bob Brady from Jackson State. 3 of arguably the best baseball coaches in not only SWAC history, but all of college baseball history. And so much so that 2 of these gentlemen here are in the Baseball Hall of Fame, in the College Baseball Hall of Fame.
You played under Johnson, right?
Yeah, I played under Johnson. Omar Johnson actually won his sister in the game about a week ago now. He has been at Jackson State for 18 years, never had a losing season.
Right.
But yeah, these 2 gentlemen here have won over 700 baseball games in their career. I got to Jackson State like the year after Brady retired, so niggas play under him. But he was the standard, I would say, at the time for like Black college baseball coaches. Jackson State was always competitive. They would always go toe-to-toe with the best Division I teams not in Mississippi, but across the country, and do well there. Same with Southern University. I I was a part of those Jackson State teams. When they in the mid 2000s, when they had like the Ricky Weeks of the world and the Kevin Vitals of the world, and some of those guys who got drafted in Major League Baseball. And I remember thinking to myself, this is probably the best collection of talent I've ever seen in my life. Because Ricky Weeks, who ironically enough won the Golden Spice Award, which is equivalent to winning the Heisman Trophy for college baseball. He was drafted number 2 overall by the Milwaukee Brewers back in 2003, and he was in for a black college baseball player to be drafted that high in any sport in modern day times is unheard of. And so for Roger Goodell to recruit that guy says a lot about his baseball acumen, his baseball scouting acumen, and just knowledge of the baseball game. So and Rat McGowan at Alcorn State, they didn't get a lot of attention. Then because it's baseball and it's SWAC baseball too, but his teams are always competitive. But I do remember we played them a lot, especially at Alcorn. He was a very funny guy. He was ahead of his time in terms of baseball coaching fashion. He would wear his baseball top or like a baseball like jacket or something like that. But like he would never wear his baseball pants. He would wear his sweatpants every game, like these gray Alcorn State baseball sweatpants he would wear in the dugout. Now he was an older gentleman, so he wanted to be comfortable.
Right.
And we would think like, why is he wearing sweatpants out here? He would go out to the mound or go like argue with the umpire. He would just look and then turn right back around. Walking away, you see his sweatpants. It was hilarious. But like a man ahead of his time though, because like I think more baseball coaches do that, by the way. Stop wearing on those uniforms. You're not part of the game anymore. Rat McGowan, pioneer.
Well, I'm gonna once again take issue with this graphic.
Wrong with the graphic, man.
You know what's wrong with this graphic?
What's wrong with it?
Because you omitted the Grambling coaches that were also listed and ranked among the winningest coaches in HBCU. Why is that?
I forgot Ralph Jones.
Ralph Waldo Emerson Jones.
And I forgot Wilbur Ellis.
And Wilbur Ellis. And they got more wins than Rat McGowan. How do you overlook that? This was not a mistake, man.
Wilbur Ellis got 20 more wins than Rat McGowan.
20 is greater than, okay, so that's more. 20 more.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna put some perspective.
We literally had a whole half a segment talking about Grambling football. What more do you want, man?
Well, I'm just saying, but we had what? 1, 2, let me see, 1, 2. So the as it stands right now, just put full perspective. Matter of fact, let me put the link into the chat. So here's the link to the story.
Grambling's always being underserved, according to Kendrick.
Well, no, according to by Kendrick Marshall, they are. I'm
not underserving Grambling.
Look, man, I'm just simply trying to report the facts. Okay, I'm just simply trying to display a little history here.
Have what we not said so far been not factual?
Well, no. I'm just saying. But you know, these things provide proper context. You provided some. You provided your personal experience with Willie McGowan and with Jackson State. I'm simply going to provide some perspective on some of the names that were mentioned. So there were Marty Miller, who had 718 wins. It was at Norfolk State from 1973 to 2005. All right, he has 718 wins. Rat McGowan has 720 wins. He coached at Alcorn from 1972 to 2009. Wilbur Ellis at Grambling has 740 wins. He was the coach there from 1977 to 2003, who to this day is a dear friend and frat brother, by the way. And then, of course, there was Ralph Waldo Emerson Jones, who affectionately is known and forever will be known on campus as Prez. And the reason why we call him Prez, for those of you who may not be aware, that Prez, or Coach Jones, or RWE Jones, who ended his career with 816 wins, he was the coach at Grambling from 1928 to 1977. And as I explained in the book, that I'm going to be releasing probably sometime maybe June, July. And this is a book that kind of chronicles HBCU sports history. More details on that coming later. But I talk about my personal interaction with Prez, in which, if some of you may know, I kind of like went between, brought up in LA, in Inglewood, but my parents and my grandparents, man, they're all from Louisiana, and they all lived in Grambling. So I went there on summers and stuff like that, stayed with them. And there were periods like my first grade year, my seventh and eighth grade year, I literally lived in Grambling. And so Prez, who just happened to be a personal friend, I would leave school, and sometimes during the day, because they didn't have lights, school was over, and as I would leave school heading home, I had to pass by the baseball stadium or the baseball field on the way home, and I would go sit in the stands. We just walk in, gang, they weren't charging anything. Prez knew who I was because he knew who my parents were. And this were my grandparents were. This was first grade. This is in '74. I was a first grader. And he would see me. He was like, "Hey, come here, boy." He waved me over. "Come here, how you doing, boy?" I said, "How you doing?" He's like, "Come on in here." He would literally, man, more than once, allow me to come in. He would allow me to sit in the dugout with the team. And when I tell you, man, you talk about somebody who just was floating on cloud nine, that was that. So, but also, and let me repeat, Prez was not only just a baseball coach, he was also the president of the university. So he was, the third president. The second.
Could you imagine that they can like?
He was the second president. So the school was founded by was founded by Charles P. Adams. Prez was the second president, and before Dr. Johnson got there and so forth. So yeah, but that's kind of what makes his particular role in this so magical and unique, because he served as the president of the university and was able to manage to be the head coach of the baseball program, which, by the way, won 7 conference championships and reached the NAIA World Series 4 times. And they finished national runner-up 1963, 64, and then 67, he was named NAIA Coach of the Year. So I'm just saying, there's some history here. And the reason why it was important for me to put this out there, obviously, it was something that I uncovered during the research of my book. But it became clear to me. I'm like, you know what? We HBCUs have produced a number of players in major leagues. Some of them Hall of Famers. And for all of the greats who've played in the major leagues, and with football, obviously, it's especially in the South, football is king. It's football and then basketball, but baseball, as productive as it's been nationally, doesn't always seem to get that shine. Even now, we understand we don't cover baseball that much, or at least we try based upon the information that we get. So I'm just simply saying, man, I thought it was appropriate. I thought it was telling, and it was to some degree kind of surprising to see some of the names on that list. And I just thought, this was a good time to pay homage to those coaches, man, for the work that they did. So good that we actually have some personal accounts and perspective with some of these coaches. Oh, and by the way, I'm not going to get into the details, but I did get a call yesterday. I did get a coach. I got a call yesterday from Roger Cato. How did I forget that? And man, what a conversation it was. But Roger Cato, man, is my new friend. I'd never talked to him before, but I got a call from Perry White, and he just happened to be with Coach Cato at the time, and he said, "Ken, Coach Cato, I'm with Coach Cato. He wants to talk to you." And boy, did he give me an earful. Wasn't anything bad, but he sure did give me an earful. So it was all good. I enjoyed it. So
yeah, Roger Cador, I met him at the 2023 Black College World Series down in Montgomery, Alabama, and like you could talk to him about baseball for like hours, just about like strategy, what pitchers are supposed to do, what hitters are supposed to do, just all the little intricacies about the game of baseball. Like he's just a wealth of knowledge. I'm Ken, like you got a trick talking to that man for as long as you did yesterday. It was probably a pleasure for you to do that.
Yeah, it was, man. He told me some things, man, but I guess, and I shouldn't be surprised, but I guess the fact that man, he's a competitor, and when you put in consideration, man, this, Roger Cater, basically the winningest baseball coach, HBCU baseball coach with over 900 wins, man. That is just phenomenal. And
he's in a college baseball hall.
He's in a college baseball hall of fame.
Yeah.
And my point is, and what makes that so phenomenal is the period of time that he actually did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So shout out to Coach Kadar, man. But that was it. Boy, that was a fun conversation yesterday. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. So our last topic of the afternoon is there's been a lot of movement in the transfer portal. There's always going to be a lot of movement in the transfer portal. It's been that way since this thing opened up a couple of years ago as a free-for-all for everybody. But there was a couple of really interesting transfer portal developments the last couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Quarterback Mekhi Hagins from Arkansas Pine Bluff, the second leading passer in the SWAC, he jumps and joins Alabama A&M. Improves their offense. And Samar Savage, another talented player from Prairie View, he jumps in the portal and signs with Jackson State. So you got two players from the SWAC West going to the SWAC East. And I thought it was kind of interesting because most times guys don't really stay within conference. They normally go outside the conference or even go to the FBS or another FCS school. But these two players, they could change some fortunes. Not so much maybe Jackson State because they're already going to be favorites going to the season, but Hagen's going from Pine Bluff to Alabama A&M, could position them to become more competitive than they were last year. Ken Rashad, what do you make of these two moves by Hagins and Savage?
Well, they're not the first to do it, but you talked about it. You mentioned it just shortly, just now. Them moving isn't surprising. It's where they move to. They're moving to schools within the conference, which not too long ago was kind of like forbidden. This is obviously before the transfer portal, of course. But now you got players who are literally moving, man, to either like the rivals. Grambling acquires a player who played at Southern last year. Hagins is leaving UAPB and is going to A&M. I mean, we're seeing this more and more now. And who's this? This is Southbound says, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. He goes to Lamar first and then with Alabama A&M.
Right. Okay, you got me. But this comment here is saying that the portal is killing players jumping around and not graduating. Yeah. So here are my thoughts on that, man. Because that is a fair question. And the only answer that I can come to, and I've always said this, is that it all depends on what the players are there for. I think we just have to conclude, first and foremost, this is my opinion. I think these players are of the mindset, I can get an education anywhere. I can go to any school in the country and get a degree. But I want to play football, plain and simple. I want to put myself in the best position to play. And given where we are now with NIL, it's not just about playing. If I'm going to play, I might as well get paid. I can get an education anywhere. So we literally have seen players, Kendrick, since the portal, we literally have seen players who have played for 4 different schools over the period of 4 to 5 different years. That is crazy.
You mean like Quay Davis did?
So I don't know how the hell how does that rack up with transfer credits and all that stuff, man? I don't know. And I would love to know if these players are actually taking advantage of that with the intent on graduating. I'm pretty.
You talked about this last weekend, how like that kind of impacts your APR score.
Yeah. But I'll just be honest with you. And well, let me just say this. I guess, and this is way above my pay grade and way above my level of understanding. I still don't really understand what the true benefit of an APR is. And to be honest with you, given where we are right now, I understand it's about making sure you track the progress of players, making sure that they matriculate and that they, continue to make progress academically speaking. But I don't know how that's possible now with the transfer portal being what it is. I don't even see how that's possible now. I don't even know if the APR score is even necessary.
I don't think it is either.
Other than just a tool, just to use it to just penalize schools for whatever reason, because they did, dude, how can you hold a school accountable for a player who's no longer at your school anymore? And that a lot of that is factored into that. The APR, I'm pretty certain APR is no longer, is as far as I'm concerned, because then they paused it during the pandemic. It was actually paused.
Yeah, it was during the pandemic. Yeah, they didn't even release it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, dude, the APR is such a nothing burger to me right now.
And they're giving, well, I know it's over now, but like during the pandemic, they gave like kids an extra year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They gave them that COVID year.
Yeah.
So I just, and a lot of kids took advantage of that. Now we got court cases. Kids are coming out of JC saying that, look, I shouldn't be penalized for a year. I didn't play 4 years. I didn't play the 4-year institution. I shouldn't be penalized for my year that I played at a junior college. And I can kind of see the validity in that. So, man, if that kid leaves, you're gonna hold that, you're gonna put that JC on the APR? I'm just saying. The APR, man, I never really thought much of it. I still don't, but I just don't see it. Given where we are right now, I just don't see the value in it.
I know, like the people, I know, like the higher ups in college. Say what?
Adrian Crook says that FAMU's been on probation for 5 years now. That's not true, is it? FAMU football, Adrian? Are we talking about FAMU football? They weren't. I don't think they were on probation.
I know this last cycle they did get penalized for the APR.
But he said for 5 years. If that's the case, they wouldn't have been able to SWAC championship game if they were on probation. Unless we're talking about if they were on probation, it wasn't a postseason ban. So
yeah, Adrian said yeah.
Okay, well, if they were on probation, it maybe I don't know what the penalty was, but they were just in the SWAC championship game 2 years ago. So
but a couple of years ago, they did have the situation where at the beginning of the season, a bunch of their players couldn't play because of grades, and there was a really big story at the start of the 2022 season.
You talking about the FAMU when they played?
The football team, yeah.
That was so drastic and was so crucial to the success of society. Someone wanted to schedule a town hall on campus. I'll never forget that. But anyway, I don't know, man. I don't see the value of APR at this point. I don't see how you can. I don't see how you can judge a school given all of the factors in play. That's just do away with APR. It's not necessary at this point.
Yeah, what Congress decides to do about college sports and how it's run is gonna be the harbinger of what happens not only at the Power 5 level, but it's gonna trickle down to every other level too. So this decision coming up this summer about what they're gonna do with NIL and all that stuff, it's really gonna have an impact on our school. So it'll be interesting to see what transpires from that.
Yeah, and just look at did they announce? Did they release APR last year, or was this the first year since COVID? Or they did APR last year?
No, it was last year too.
It was last year too.
Yeah.
Like I said, man, I understand we have to talk about it. I just don't see the need for it at this point. I really don't. But all of the issues right now that the NCAA has to be concerned with, especially as it relates to NIL and paying these players and debating on whether or not they need to be considered employees and all the other legal issues that are going on right now, man, APR is the least of their concerns right now.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know how that audit is going to work since the Department of Education is going to be dissolved in a few years. So what's the standards going to be? I guess what I'm saying.
Oh my God, I don't know if the Department of Education even has any say so over that.
They probably don't, but I mean, like the way the country is going, like we never know what's going to happen from day to day.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. Anyway.
Yeah, but I do find it interesting, like that like these kids are more. I know before, like a lot of schools like wouldn't even allow you to transfer within your conference because of competitive, I guess, disadvantage. But like you see, a lot of kids now take an opportunity to like stay within the conference because they like the conference. I guess that they feel like they got a benefit of playing in the conference. And as much as we think like, well, these players want to go to FBS, but like you think about it, like a lot of these kids, they're really not doing that in very large numbers. Yes, there are some who are doing that, but like most of the part, they're staying within like the FCS, or they're staying within Division II, or they're staying within their conference. So I think this might be a good thing in a lot of ways that kids are deciding to like stay where they've been at for a while.
You talking about with the, so I think a lot of that may be due to the fact of where they may be from geographically.
Yeah, they want to be close to home.
Yeah. I know. I think there was a player. There've been a couple of players. I think from what I've read, I'm not necessarily talking about just players, at HBCUs, but I think there were a number of players who made the transition. And this was at the FBS level, where it was the issue where, I get a little NIL money, but at the same time, I can send some of that money at home, and they were near, close to home. So I think a lot of that plays into, goes into play too, as opposed to someone maybe who lives on the East Coast and they decide they want to go, who lives on the East Coast and decide they want to go play on the West Coast. But I think a lot of these players, man, it may be just a case where they don't necessarily want to be too far away from home, or just far enough away from home to where they can be on their own. But, one of those type of things. It just depends on the individual.
I mean, when now we're learning lineman, Ken, you know this better than anybody. Like you got a whole conference that stretches from the West Coast to the East Coast. So there is no like really going back home again.
Okay. Well, okay. Duly noted. I have no comeback for that because it's true. Conference. Look, there's no such thing. We used to make that argument about the conference footprint. There's no such thing as a conference footprint anymore.
This is the conference foot. That's what it is. No footprint. It's a foot. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, but as you know, the SWAC has expanded to 12 teams, and it really has worked out for the SWAC. They've stayed within their within their footprint for the most part. I mean, Florida's in it now, but still, like, it's been a benefit. I don't know what other conferences are going to do, i.e. the MEAC, but I think like the SWAC expanding while staying mostly Southern has been a strength for the conference.
You saying what you talking with the expansion?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, I personally, I mean, look, if you're Charles McClellan, I understand why he did it. I mean, you can't ignore the possibility of FAMU saying, look, we want to come join the SWAC. Would you invite us? And then, of course, making it an 11-team conference, and then shortly thereafter, Bethune-Cookman decides to come too. I get the logic behind that. I just hate what it's doing for the MEAC right now. I hate that. I really do. There's a part of me, and I know we're kind of going off. This is the SWAC page, but still, there's a part of me that just has a little resentment right now for schools. I'm not hating, but just a tad bit of resentment, man, for schools like A&T and Hampton for what they did as well. I understand the business. I understand the business approach behind it. Doesn't mean I have to like it, but I hate the position that it's put the MEAC in, and I just hope that some way, somehow, man, they can bounce back, because they've got to get some more. They've got to get some more members into the conference. But anyway, I
mean, they're not folding. I mean, no, they got 6 football teams, but it's not good to have 6 football teams in the conference.
You got to have at least 8.
Yeah.
And that's not a tall task. I know there was some talk about the possibility of Chicago State. I still didn't, geographically, that just didn't make sense. And it's not like Chicago State is just overflowing with money either to make that's a heck of a travel expense.
But Chicago State used to be in the Western Athletic Conference, and they would play games in Chicago and all throughout the Pacific Northwest, which is crazy. Yeah, the basketball team. Yeah, the basketball team was. Yeah,
but you don't have as many pieces to really deal with. It's a different situation when you're dealing with football.
It still costs money to get on the plane, though, Ken Rashad.
It costs money to take. Okay, yeah, it may cost money to get on a plane, but when you looking at what maybe 25 players, including coaches on the staff, as opposed to 60 some on a football team, or I'm not 80 something on the football team on the plane. Dude, come on, man. That's that's not even close. And
I mean, Chicago State got to go to the East Coast though. That's not cheap either. Yeah. For their football team whenever it gets up and going.
Yeah. Well, there we are.
You think a SWAC school should schedule them?
No.
No?
I mean, they can, but who wants to see that? Who wants to see that? Who wants to see Chicago State football game?
Like SWAC schools just schedule worse opponents to Chicago State.
But okay, but I'm saying it doesn't.
We're still playing Virginia Lynchburg for crying out loud.
God, I had no argument for that. You aren't. Oh my Lord. Well, that's a budget. That literally is a bought with the look. Given Chris Stevens knows better than anybody. You can pay $2 for Virginia State will pay you for $2. Okay, $20. Okay, $200. Okay, $200. We will pay you for $200.
How is that school a sanctioned football outfit? Is beyond me.
I don't know.
It's beyond me.
Oh, it is.
And Chris wrote this really good story about, like, it's really good and sad at the same time, about how dysfunctional their program and school is, and they still have the capacity to even function. It's amazing to me.
I have no look, man. And the thing is, despite the reporting, I think they still got a football program, don't they?
They do.
You know what?
They still do.
Let me look this up real quick. Do they have a published schedule?
Yeah, like Miss Mack said, VUL only has 2 home games this season.
Oh my God, they still have a football program.
They got to play money games to support their school team.
Oh my God, here's a 25. Here's a no. Here's a 2020. Oh my God, they got they got a website now, Kendrick. They got it's kind of pretty.
That's kind of bare minimum for a university, I would think, a website.
So, wait a minute. They've got Valparaiso, Roanoke College, St. Andrews, Shorter, Bluefield, South Carolina Central. Never heard of them. Morgan State, Texas Southern, Livingstone, Benedict.
I told you.
And Sacred Heart. Really? They're all away games. Yeah, they've only got 2 home games. And they're for $200. Oh, Chris.
Somebody running a Ponzi scheme over there at VUL, man.
Oh my God. I'm just saying, man. Yeah, I forgot about Lincoln, California, of Lincoln, what's that? Lincoln College or Lincoln University of California. But the thing is, at least they're not. I don't think they're in financially speaking. I don't think they're as in bad a shape as VUL though. That's the only difference. But still, man, that's crazy. That is just crazy. Anyway, man, let's get out of here.
I can. You know what to do.
All right, fellas, people, good folks. We look. As I said, this is being brought to you by the HBCU Sports Shop. Look, man, HBCU Sports 15 is the promo code to put in, man. Get 15% off of your entire order. Look, man, and look, I've heard you. Someone said we got too many shirts and caps. Okay, the mugs are coming. The mugs are coming. But if they come, man, they better go. All right. If the mugs come, they better go. All right. You can also go to hbcusports.com/donate. Donate, man, to support the channel. Kendrick is not cheap. I got to pay producer fees. And also follow us on the social network, man. Facebook, Instagram, X, as Chris calls the musty app. And we're also on Blue Sky as well. So until next time. Oh, by the way, the roundtable will be on tomorrow. It will be me, Kendrick, Chris Stevens, and Jared Hoffman. All of us will be on, and we're going to have some Friday shenanigans, man. So make sure you join us for that. And ain't no telling what we're going to talk about tomorrow, but it's going to be fun. Okay. So until next time, man, God bless you all. We'll see you next time.